So without further ado, the lovely song stylings of Mel DiGiacomo.
Yes, thank you. That's not bad. That's better than Unique's. Anyway, this gentleman, I think he's a gentleman, he asked, what are you shooting now? Easy answer. I have no idea. Jay Maisel asked that question when he was sitting here once. He said, when you walk outside your house, what are you expecting to find? I don't know. I have no idea. If you're a photographer, well, the kind of photographer that I like to think I am, pretty well-rounded, we're like sponges. We absorb everything. Whatever we don't like, we just squeeze out. But we try and see everything, try and notice everything. When it comes to pictures like this, I'm interested in first and primary, getting close. I have to get close. There's a wonderful line in a Groucho Marx movie where he's dancing with this woman. She goes, hold me closer. And he pulls her in. She goes, closer. He pulls her in. She goes, closer. He goes, if I was any closer to you, I'd be in back of you. It's the same thing with me. I get close. And once in a while, it bites me in the nose. But for the most part, being close is where I want to be. Not only because I want to be up that close, but I want to bring you, the viewer. I'm not alone behind this. You're with me. So I take your hand and I bring you up and I go, look at this. And then I take that picture. And I'm interested, you don't just get close for the sake of getting close. You wait for something to happen. And it's the emotion of this woman in her face that attracted me. And the term, Mike will understand this, the term minestrone in Italian means whatever the hell is in the refrigerator goes in the soup. Whatever's left over, you don't want it to go to bad, so you put it in the soup. A little more of this, a little more of that. There's no recipe for minestrone. It's a little bit of everything. So that's what you're going to see here. I'm going to go from a woman staring at a guy in a house to this. Now, the success of this photo for me was it doesn't look like that originally. I stopped it down, 2 stops. I wanted that sky to go black, and I did that in Photoshop, which is easy. So for me, the great thing about this new technology is it involves the photographer even more, because you can control things. You don't like the sky? Change it. Photoshop, you can change it. You want a different color red? Make it a different color red. So, and especially in color, where you can't control color. When I do a wedding, they say, well, why don't you shoot it in color? I said, well, easy. I said, I photographed a wedding once, and a bridesmaid was in a green satin dress, beautiful dress. She wanted a picture with her mother, who was wearing a red floral pattern. You put them next to one another, and your eyes are going like that. And I go, oh my God, let me see if I can stop in between there and push the button. If you were a painter, you'd never put those together. Those patterns, those colors, those hues, you'd never do that. With Photoshop these days, you can change a lot of that. So you become a painter in a sense, because you're controlling the color within the picture. Now I like this picture very much, because this is my son, who taught his racket to follow him home. This is one heck of a tennis player, this kid. He was 16 and he taught the racket, just follow me home, Racky. He's going to kill me when he sees that. Now, Ed Goldman and I have been photographing the US Open for 40 years, and Ed's probably been doing it for as long. And remember before, what are you shooting? I'm at the US Open. I should be shooting tennis. But I'm looking around, and there's a workman working on some scaffolding, and I see his legs. He's got shorts on. I see his legs. I said, oh, my God. Called him down. I said, do you mind if I photograph? No, not at all. He's got Pacino and De Niro, and on the back, on his calf, he's got Hannibal Lecter. True story. Hannibal Lecter and Jack Nicholson in The Shining, like that. So you didn't want to get too close to him. I just took his picture and thanked him. And there's a kid that had his racket follow him. And Ed knows that I've been shooting tennis, but the thing I like so much about this photograph for me, and this is very personal, is how well balanced my son is. And this is something you can't teach. And there are some things that I taught him, but that you can't teach. That is innate, and it's beautiful to watch because I never had that. There he is again, and I'm demonstrating to all the people that use a two-hand backhand, don't do that. One hand, it's big enough, strong enough. There he is again. Again, it's all about balance. He's got his hand out properly. He turns his shoulder, points his shoulder at the ball, and it's a perfect for if you're doing teaching tennis. Here's the perfect one that I like is, do you ever, if you have children or grandchildren, and you watch the kids playing little t-ball, and the coaches are going, keep your eye on the ball! What does that mean to a 6-year-old or a 5? What does that mean? I mean, it's an abstract term, keep your eye on the ball. This kid kept his eye on the ball. Missed it by a mile, but he kept his eye on the ball, where it should be. I don't know why I relate this picture to Robert Capa's picture of the Spanish soldier getting shot, and he's just falling back and he's caught in midair. And here my son is playing tennis. There's no ball to be seen, so there's a sense of mystery. You say, what's happening here? And it's like Einstein said, the most beautiful thing in the world is a mystery. This is a simple photograph, but it is mysterious in that sense. This is part of another series that I'll show you. Hopefully, if I stop talking, I'll show you this. It's called Vernacular Sports. I get kids coming up to me all the time saying, geez, I'd love to shoot a Giant game or Rangers, or I'd love to shoot the Knicks. Really? How long have you been photographing? Well, about 6 months. Oh, really? That long, huh? Well, tell you what. First, you got to practice. Well, how can I practice? I can't get into Giant Stadium. You don't have to. Thing to do is to photograph the kids. Go to Little League games, the baseball games. Same thing with the Pop Warner League football. You have a lot of latitude because you can move around wherever the heck you want, whereas at Giant Stadium, you get bounced from one area to another area. And you have a lot of latitude, and you can even cheat and get on the field sometimes. So prove yourself there. Prove yourself with the little stuff. And then build up a portfolio. Then you can go to Sports Illustrated and say, here's my portfolio, or ESPN, whatever. And show them what you've done at a smaller level, and they'll say, this stuff is very good. We'd like to see what you can do on a bigger level. So don't start off big, because you're not going to get in there. It's like Ed knows, just like I do. You try and get into the U.S. Open, you're going to be in trouble. But I'll say that in fairness, at the U.S. Open, they have a practice week before. Bring your camera, you get up close and shoot like mad. And it doesn't cost anything. It's free to get in. And all the side courts are filled, so you'll get good tennis action. Don't worry about getting Roger Federer. You're not going to get him. He's going to be on center court. But you can get other players that look good, like that picture of my son. If somebody saw that, they say, well, that's a nice photograph. And they don't care who it is. It's a nice photograph. And that's what you're all about. You're not about being paparazzo and taking celebrities necessarily. You're there to get nice photographs. And that's how you practice. This I shot, and I got to brag about this camera. And I'm not selling the Canon over Nikon or Pentax or Leica or anything else, but I happen to like the Mark III, the Canon 5D Mark III. It has the big chip, the big frame, and you can crop the heck out of these things. I shot this. Anybody, any idea what lens I used on this?
24 millimeter.
Yeah, exactly. 24-1-4. 24-1-4, and I'm right under the basket. So these kids are real close. See, because you can see where the foul line is. So I'm no more than 3 feet from that kid's foot. And that's what I want to do. I want to bring the viewer in there. Viewers never see that. I mean, even if you went to Madison Square Garden, it's going to be rare to get a shot like that, because usually you're using bigger lenses. This is how to protect yourself at the net. That's James Franciscus, the actor. I don't know if anybody from the 70s would remember him. Now, it's not a great action shot, but what it says for me, this is the game I played and I loved. This is rugby, and they have 2 divisions. They have under 18 and over 35s. What happens is, they'll mix them up every once in a while, because guys will get tired and they say, I need a substitute. No. This kid goes in the 35s, young boy. Look at the size of those elephants behind this guy. Look at this kid. You know, just crazy enough, like I was, to attack this behemoth in front of him. And this is what happens to that kid after the, no. But this is what happens in rugby. You know, okay, you get a gash over the eye or a swollen lip, but you don't get orthopedic injuries like you do in football. And that's why I like the game better. This is my son, again. And the great thing about tennis is there's a lot of emotion in tennis. Whether it's, you know, a 10-year-old boy or anybody else, you know, you're going to get emotions. This is a bit existential for me, you know, because he seems to be out of it. He's not even looking at the camera, and the kid's not looking off, you know, and there's a different dynamic going on between the two of them. And I think that's what succeeds in the photograph. And when I can't be there, you know, I want to try and take the picture. And this is the coach at Old Tappan High School. And he's going to hate me because I don't want to give his name. You know, his initials are Brooke Selzer. And he's the coach at Old Tappan High School. A good guy, and he knows his tennis. Unfortunately, he has difficulty landing when he falls. This is, you know, a fun match down in Antigua at Curtin Bluff in the West Indies, and the tall fellow staring at the girl is Dick Stockton, who was a top 10 player at one time. But what I'm looking for here is the interaction or non-interaction of 4 people. And you kind of make order out of chaos, or at least that's my idea. Okay, who is he? Let me see hands. Oh, you would know. Nobody knows? Best big man in basketball? You want to tell him, Mike?
Dirk Nowitzki.
Exactly. Dirk Nowitzki, young German player, European player, 7 feet tall, got a shot that never misses, but he's also one heck of a tennis player. If you look at him, everything's right. His racket is up, he's going to come through, his shoulder's pointing at the ball, he's intently watching it, he's turned his body already, and he's going to open up. This is taken from Jersey City in 1980. I used to hang out down there because I'm from that area, so. Oh, sorry. This is in a friend's backyard, so it allows me to get really close. And I shot this with a flash because I wanted to get some sense of motion. Same thing with the the Mark III. You know, you don't see that in regular sports. And this is the kind of stuff, if you shoot this and you make a portfolio out of it and you show it to magazines or whatever, they're going to say, this guy is different. He has a different eye, he's going to look at things differently, and that's what we want. This is called Hockey in Hoboken. Back in 1975, I think I took this. And I love street hockey because the kids are all so tough. You know, and they're using those clip-on skates, and when they get roughed up, their clothes get ripped, they just gaffer's tape it and keep on playing. Here's the other thing that, you know, if you're going to shoot professional sports, you're never going to get this kind of access. So if you go to the high school and you talk to the coaches and say, you know, I'd like to have access to get, yeah, fine. 9 out of 10 of them are pretty good about it. So, and this is what's interesting to me is, I like the game. I find the game pretty easy to shoot, but this stuff is more intriguing for me. I mean, what can be better than a kid trying to figure out how to put these silly pads on, you know? And you can see it in his face. And the other kid is looking down. He doesn't know if he has it on right or wrong or backwards or forwards. Kevin learned this from my son Anthony. You know, this is Kevin Devine, and he taught his racket to follow him too as well. You know, sometimes when you're out and it's 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you go, God, that's bloody awful light. You know, what the heck am I going to shoot? I'm up on a cliff. The thing that interests me is the shadow and the relationship to the individual. My son again, but this time I'm photographing my computer screen, which I love doing. If you haven't done that, you know, find some good photographs, you know, and usually I'm tacking stuff up all over it. That action deficit hyperactivity disorder, that's my wife's evaluation of me. She's a psychologist. And there's one up there that I really like, and are you going to take notes on this one? Listen to this. Walker Evans said that, and it's right up here. Stare, pry, listen, eavesdrop. Die knowing something. You're not here that long. It's a great statement. And that's what I love about photography, because we are not only dying to know something, we're recording it. Now, it may be good photography or bad photography, but we are recording it. And I think that's important. Again, vernacular hoops. You know, I'm shooting into the light, and you get that wonderful lens flare. I mean, the photograph without the lens flare is not really as dynamic. Again, I'm that far away from the kid. And so many of you, and I thank you for this, so many of you have been here before, and you've probably heard me say this, but Dorothea Lange, the great American photographer, she was asked, and you know her photograph, she did the one of the migrant mother, which if you want a copy of it, you just call the Library of Congress and you buy one, because we, the government, we the people, own that photograph, because she was hired by the government during the Depression era to go out and photograph, you know, America in the bad state it was in. And she has this great photograph of the migrant mother. And I was photographing the homeless for Newsweek years ago, back in the 80s. And I met a woman that was in a van with 2 kids, 2 cats, and a dog, all in a van, a pretty grungy van. And it took me a long time to convince her that she should be on the cover of Newsweek. That's going all over the world, literally. And I finally did, and as I'm shooting it, the kids are huddled up together with her, and I'm saying, idiot, Dorothea Lange has already done this photograph. Forget it. Move along, find somebody else, and I can't move. I'm still shooting. And Dorothea Lange did do that photograph, except with different subjects. Difference is mine's in color, because Newsweek is a color magazine on the cover. So when I went back to Newsweek, after I sent the film back, they checked it out, and they said, it's great, come on back, we got the cover. I went, they had mocked up 4 or 5 different covers. They said, what do you think? I said, yeah, it's all right. I go, what do you mean it's all right? The art director was almost insulted that I didn't like his design. I said, the design is fine. It's the photograph that doesn't work. Why? It's in color. We're talking about homeless. Homeless is black and white. I said, tell you what, make me a dummy cover, a mock-up, and do it in black and white, and we'll see what happens. Make a long story short, it ran in black and white. The woman was, an attractive older woman, but very attractive. Blue eyes, blonde hair, red shirt. Wrong. I mean, if I had a dresser for this thing, it would have been very differently if they wanted it in color. But it was the blue eyes and the blonde hair, and it was just too pretty and too wholesome. And I wanted to see how they were struggling. Anyway, they asked Dorothea Lange, how do you get so close without being noticed? And she gave an answer that almost seems flippant. She said, I put on my cloak of invisibility. Yeah? What the hell does that mean? So, Dorothea Lange, for you people that don't live in New Jersey, God bless you. Dorothea Lange was born in Hoboken. Literally, you got a rock, you could hit it from here, right across the river. Stieglitz, the father of photography, was also born in Hoboken, 2 giants. So I'm down in Hoboken, where I used to hang out as a kid. I used to box in the Hoboken Y. And I'm in a kind of curio shop. It's got all kinds of old stuff they're reselling. And I look in the back, and something attracts me. I go in the back, and up on a hook is this cloak, big, gigantic thing. So I take it off the thing, and I put it on. I go, oh, boy, this thing's nice. It fits me well. And I look inside, and it says, property of D. Lange. This is Dorothea Lange's cloak of invisibility. So I walked out with the cloak on. Never paid for it. They never saw me. So there's my cloak of invisibility. The cloak of invisibility is your metaphor for working it out the way you can work it out. It's your personality and your attitude with the subject that will allow you to get close. If you're going to be a knucklehead about it, you're not going to get close. So I'd love to be able to teach that, but I can't teach it. You have to work it out yourself. You say, damn it, there's a photograph I really, really want. And if you really, really want it, somehow you will get that. The American Indian believed, and I'll back it up, there was a sitcom years ago in a police precinct. And Steve Landesberg, one of the comics, but he's playing a detective, he brings this old man in, an old Indian. And the chief says, what do we got here? He says, well, I picked him up for vagrancy. Really? Where? In the park. He's in the park? Yeah. So what was he doing? He says, well, the American Indian believes that wherever they are is the center of the universe. Unless you happen to live in Jersey. So, well, that's the joke anyway. That, up to that point, he's correct. When this thing is in your hands, you are the center of the universe. Not that anything else doesn't exist, it certainly does. but you're important. This empowers you to do whatever the hell you want, and that's to take pictures. Now, if you get in an argument or a fight with somebody, you're on your own. And don't quote me, because they'll be looking for me. So what I'm saying is to be as aggressive as you can without being hurtful, and get your picture, because that is your passion. And remember this, I don't know about the rest of you guys, I can talk for a few of you guys, but we're addicts. A-D, how do you spell addicts? A-D-I-C. We're addicts. And our addiction is pictures. Why is he late? Where have you been? You missed the best part of the whole show. Debbie said in 3 weeks it'll be on the air so you can see what you missed. You know, Mike, take his name. Anyhow, we're addicted. We're addicted to photographs and movies. And whatever you see when you walk out of here, walking in here, I took 7 photographs. Just walking in the place. There was one gentleman, you know, showing another man how to work the camera. And it was really interesting. And I'm this close, shooting, and they're not paying any attention to me. So if you see something, take it. And if you get in trouble and they yell at you or something like that, you say, all right, don't worry, I'll delete it. All right, I'll make you happy, I'll delete it. I remember in the old days I did that, and some woman was ballistic about me taking her photograph. I said, all right, I'll give you the film. So I'm fooling around. I've got a spare roll in my hand that has nothing to do with her, and I'm rewinding the camera, and I said, here's your film, thank you, leave me alone. And she never got it. All right, Eddie, you want to tell them who this is? That's Martina and some chubby Italian. That's the world's greatest tennis player, as far as I'm concerned. Woman tennis player, Martina Navratilova, and a wonderful friend and a good woman, and one hell of a tennis player. Oldest woman ever to win a Grand Slam, oldest player, actually, to ever win a Grand Slam event. This was taken in Russia when Ed and I were there photographing the tennis tournament, and I was walking around on the streets. I was taking pictures. Again, notice how physical this picture is, man. You know, if you see kids in a playground somewhere and you say, well, gee, I'd love to get out there and photograph, kids might yell at me. Don't pay any attention. They're kids. They love it. They're going to be having pictures taken. So get close. Oh, one other thing, and this is a tough situation. I get this question a lot. Well, what happens if they tell you you can't take pictures? If you're outside, in a park, or in a playground, you have every right to be there. You are the center of the universe. Not only that, if you carry a copy of the Constitution, a little book like this, you say, read the First Amendment. It says, I can be here. It doesn't specifically bring up photography, but it says, I have freedom of speech. And if that isn't a way of speaking, I don't know what is. Again, physical. This was in North Bergen, New Jersey, where I was raised. My son again, how he keeps hopping up in here, I'll never know. But it shows you how quick a linebacker can be, because that's a tough shot. He's jumping out of the way, and you know he's not the typical build for a tennis player. He's big and husky and strong, but he's very quick. Now, this is what I love doing. When my son calls up his friends and says, come on, let's play some football. They go out, I go in the game. I don't stand on the sideline like I do at Sports Illustrated or when I'm shooting for Newsweek, shooting a sporting event. I go in the game. And the kids know, look, I'm going to be in the game. If you hit me, you hit me. You know, I played enough football to know what it's like to get hit or even brace myself for a hit. I said, but, you know, the referee's in the middle of the game, and players, for the most part, avoid him. So try and avoid me. But if you can't, I'm asking for it, so don't worry about it. So I go in the game. Now, technically, and this is where I'm not the greatest, I know enough to get by, and that's all I really want to know, because there are 4 buttons on here. I have absolutely no idea what they do. And the back of this thing, you know, where the movies come up with all the script, you know, I understand menu and format card. And that's it. White balance, I still don't know what white balance means. I have no idea. And I know this much. White balance, that's a term you don't want to use in Mississippi. So I don't know what the hell they mean. But I do know this. If I'm going to go out and photograph snow or rain, I want to get that shutter speed up, because I don't want streaks. And that's what will happen. You shoot at 250, you're going to get streaks. I don't want that. I want pointillism. You know what pointillism is? Georges Seurat, the great impressionist, did little dots of color. Well, that's what I'm doing here, except they're dots of white. And that's where you got to get your shutter speed up to a minimum of 1,000. That's the bad news. In the old days, not now, because these things will go up to, are you ready for this? 10,000 ISO. Do you know what that means? Did any of you grow up in the film area? Let me see the hands. Okay, so you know what 1600 was. When you push your film, 1600, you go, oh boy, it's going to be a little grainy, and I'm going to have to do my processing a certain way, et cetera, et cetera. Not anymore. 1600 is a piece of cake with this thing. I remember I was shooting a tennis tournament in Dallas, Texas, indoors. I used to shoot at 250 at 2.8 at 1600. That's how low the light was. And it was okay. You know, it was fine, except when the racket comes forward like that, I get a blur. So I'd have to wait until the racket was back here, or the racket followed through. But anything in between there, you got a blur. This thing, when I first got the 5D Mark III, I said, let me see what this thing does. So I went from 1600 to 2000. That helped a little. Then I went to 4000. I said, that's even better. Now I can pretty much stop the racket. I said, let's see what 6,000 does. Then I called a friend of mine, Carmine Galasso, who works for the Bergen Record, damn good photographer. I said, Carmine, I'm going up. Oh, and by the way, I just wanted to say for the Italians in the audience, with a name like Carmine, you cannot be mistaken for being Polish, because we own that name. So anyway, Carmine said, well, see what happens. I go up to 10,000. It was glorious. Again, I love these kids because, you know, they're playing suburban rugby is what I call it. They're playing tackle football. You know, and rugby there's no blocking, and here there's blocking. So it's great, and everything works. You know, there's not, you know, in football, you can't see anybody's face, but this is nice. In the middle of the day, these kids are out. And this is what I mean. You want to work for Sports Illustrated or ESPN or whoever, this is what you shoot. Show them that you can shoot. Show them you have an eye and your timing is excellent. And I love surrealistic photos. The other thing I love is I love dark backgrounds because you know, if there's anything in there, I can get rid of it in Photoshop, and then you just have a wonderful portrait of a child. You know, so many people bring their kids all, you know, with chinos on and white shirts and Aran sweaters, you know, and they comb their hair and they sit them down and there's a pretty background, you know, and all the kids are going smiling like that. I hate that. It drives me crazy personally. This to me is a portrait because it's a real child being active. Now, it's not a great action shot, what it is look at the hands. I love the delicacy in those. These guys are playing football, and yes, there's that one delicate moment. Sorry. Again, you know, at a baseball game, and the kid's on deck, and you're looking around, and this shows people, when you build your portfolio, that you're not just one-dimensional, only getting the sports action. You're getting, there's action on the sidelines too. You know, look at the intensity in that kid's face. These still life moments, you know, this isn't something I set up. This was there, you know. These are the best games, the inner city games. You know, these kids are really tough. You know, when you fall there, boy, you get hurt. That's all cement. It's not like here, which is grass. You know, my kids were raised in the suburbs, big wimps. You know, but I grew up playing in schoolyards, you know, with cement. And a friend of mine, Eddie Peterson, said to me, he said, if I didn't see you bleeding, I knew you had a bad game. Another time to make a nice portrait. I usually don't use the long lens, but in this case it worked out nicely. This is the 70 to 200 zoom. This is what I much prefer, is getting in close with the wide angle lens and then have something interrupt the frame that doesn't belong there. And that's what you're all about as an artist, is looking for things that are, you know, that don't belong there. See, again, I think this stuff is pretty easy. You know, with the right lens and just firing away, you're going to come up with something. It's when they're talking and combing their hair, I find more interesting, is getting into the kid's head. This stuff I find more challenging. This is just elegance, you know. Look at the symmetry involved in that. I was living in London.
Sorry, buddy.
This is Cliff Hausner, folks, one of the all-time greats. And his son-in-law is back there. Actually, his bodyguard. You see Michael on the way in? Yeah, there he is.
Sorry, folks.
Anyway, Cliff's dad worked for the New York Times, and when I was a kid, couldn't have been nicer to me. He was a real sweet guy and a damn good photographer. Anyhow, I was playing rugby in England. It was so foggy that they called the match off because you couldn't see. So these kids, these little public school kids, public school in England means private school, they took over the pitch. Okay, you're going to take over the pitch. I got my camera. I'm going in the game. I went in the middle of their game and just followed them around. And, you know, it's an impromptu thing. They didn't care that I was on the pitch. So all I'm saying to you is when you can do it, when you can get involved in a game, get involved in a game. Don't stand on the sideline with a 300 or a 400 millimeter lens. You know, that you should be able to do after 1 year of shooting, is learn how to use those big lenses. This is the hard stuff. And the other thing about rugby is this you get a lot of. It's called the line out. And you get these great faces of intensity. You know, and this is what I mean about, you know, being involved in getting, the other thing about rugby is you can get real close. You get within 2 or 3 feet, because a lot of stuff happens on the sidelines. Even something like this, a guy taking a break, getting a drink of water, and you shoot it with your wide angle lens. You shoot it with a long lens, it's not the same photo. You know how close I am to these guys? I'm telling you, man. He missed me by inches. And they're not about to stop. Not that they're there to hurt you, they're just not going to stop. And I don't blame them. It's their game. And I'm on the sideline, but this guy is about 3.5 feet away from me. By the time he gets the ball, and he's past me, he's already past me. So you take your chances when you're shooting rugby. But let me tell you something, you get better photographs in rugby than you will anywhere else. And the other thing is they don't have any equipment on. Same thing here. I mean, you can feel how close I am because that lens is such a wide lens. You can tell that by the depth of field. This is what's important to me in the game, is the individual playing the game. I want to see psychologically, I want to see what's in his head. But you're not going to get that in the other sports because you can't get that close. That's a rugby player. That's what they're all like. That was like me. I didn't have any talent for the game, but I was sufficiently crazy. So, and that's the first thing on the application. They say, are you crazy? And if you check that off, you don't have to check anything else off. We want you. This is the other thing I like about it. These guys don't wear jocks. They wear boxer shorts. That's the pain of the game, right there. In one photograph, it tells you what rugby is all about. And the other thing is, these guys don't care. They don't care that you're photographing them. This is what ladies rugby. You have to look nice when you step on the pitch, so. I changed my composition. Next to me was this couple, young couple, watching the game. So instead of just photographing the line out, I moved it over just a bit to see these kids. You know, and yet it explains where they are. They're obviously watching a rugby match. The other thing, when I do portraits, I don't want people smiling. Laughing is another story. But smiling, that's something you have to affect. Smile, kids, smile. So just look at the camera. Let your countenance reveal who you are. You know, but as far as laughter, that's spontaneous. I mean, Abaddon did magnificent portraits of people laughing. That's hard to beat, man, in terms of a sports photograph, is the loneliness of this. And the key to this was I loved what happened here. I was at Newport Beach in California, and it was around noontime. It was just awful light, terrible light, bright sun. And you go, oh God, that stuff's so flat. All of a sudden, the fog came in off the ocean. I don't know why, what happened, but it came off the ocean and just softened everything up. Got rid of the background for me, and you know, it looks like I have a white backdrop. And that's what made the photograph, was the fog. This is a Democrat, and you Republicans don't like him, you can leave. You know. But look at how long ago that was, you know. This was at his brother's tournament, the RFK tournament at the US Open. And you can see Teddy was in pretty good shape in those days. My son again, he keeps popping up. But again, it's these surrealistic moments. You look and you go, what the hell is happening here? And that's all I want from the viewers. What's happening? The minute you say what's happening, I've involved you, and that's my point, is to involve the viewer. Here he is here. He was an apprentice, an orthopedic apprentice, and he was practicing on relocating people's knees, you know. But look at the size of them, you know. And he's a tennis player. He's not a football player or a rugby player. Anybody know who that is besides Ed Goldman? Who else knows? Only Ed. Ed raised his hand. I knew you'd know. That's Virginia Wade. She won the U.S. Open and Wimbledon. As a matter of fact, before Andy Murray, she was the last Brit to have won at Wimbledon. And she lives here in New York City. Virginia Wade. Okay, Ed, here's a trivia question for you. What's Virginia's first name?
I know a birthday. How's that?
No? Well, you have to send her a card and address it, Dear Sarah.
Oh, you're right.
It's Sarah Virginia Wade. I love this couple. These guys show up at the U.S. Open. They're all set, you know, and just, I don't know. The picture speaks for itself. I'm not going to make any comments. And this is women's rugby. It's just as bad as men's rugby, you know. And, you know, somebody once said, boy, you got to really be stupid to play that game. I go, yeah, this is Princeton and the other team is Vassar. Real dumb schools. This is a portrait. This is the way I do portraits. And it's a 28 millimeter lens. And, you know, everybody says, well, you're going to do portraits, you got to have an 85 or a 105. Those two lenses are telephotos for me. I've never used an 85. I had a 105 once, and that was it. My portraits are 28 millimeter or 21 millimeter and get close.
How close?
Real close. I'm within 4 feet of that guy. And the thing I love about, this is down in Antigua in the West Indies. The thing I like about these people is that, you know, they'll pose for you. You know, they know who I am and they leave me alone. This is all a bluff, but I love it. And I love the woman in the back who's turned away from all the action and a child in the thing. And the one thing that I stress is when you look at a photograph, don't just look at it, look into it. See what else is going on besides the dominant feature in the foreground. Look at the dog, the way the dog is moving away, the way the woman is moving away, you know, and the child in the background running. Same thing here. Underneath the house is a dog. You can see the tail end of the dog, you know, and you can see some shoes lying around on these rocks. There's a great dignity in that face, isn't it? This is just walking around New York City. Here's the question, and boy, you guys are going to be punished if you have the wrong answer. I want to see how many hands have cameras with them right now. Okay, how many don't have their cameras? Take her with you. Where's the girl in the back? Don't hide back there, young lady. I see you. You, one with the Nikon, at home. You want to be a photographer? Take your camera with you. You know, and if you don't like walking around with a big, put it inside your jacket, you know, and when you see something, take it out and take your picture. You follow somebody, you say, there's something interesting happening there, but what is it? So don't just look straight ahead, look down. And you've got this headless shadow and the patterns. This is in Sicily. Right after this picture, her husband shot me. So, actually, no, he didn't. Because I speak Sicilian. What are you, a wise guy? Who you talking to, me? You say that in Sicilian, though. I don't know if you realize this or not. There's a difference between Sicilian and Italian. Italian's a beautiful language. It's wonderful. My mother used to speak Italian. It was really wonderful. But Sicilian is like learning your English from Sylvester Stallone. Chilling. Clifford, you'll be interested in this, and I'm almost going to put you out of business in a sense, because I'm not lighting my portraits anymore. I have a big window in my gallery, and I put up a backdrop, and I put this sucker on 6400 ASA. I mean, in the old days you couldn't do that, but you can now. And the light coming in is beautiful. It's diffused and soft. I've got a black backdrop. And that's all that is a gray backdrop and a window light. And I'm photographing a black man. That's not easy, because you have to open up a little more. And I've been down in Antigua for 40 years, so I can get away with this. I used to yell at the fishermen, because they'd be wearing white T-shirts. I go, white T-shirt? You're black. You're wearing a white T-shirt? Do you know what this does for me in the dark room? Do you realize the difficulty I have trying to show your face and the white T-shirt? Wear darker colors, or you're not going fishing anymore. And they don't pay any attention to me. They think it's all a giggle. This is down at Michael's place, Hoboken, New Jersey. Remember where Dorothea Lange, Edward Stiglitz, and Michael were born. Actually, I wasn't born there.
You were photographing?
No, I was just following him. And as I'm following him, with my bad hips, I can't bend. I'd like to bend yet. So I just dropped the camera down real low. And I'm firing, looking at it, firing, making sure I'm getting what I'm getting. And that's the beauty of today's technology. Yes, ma'am?
Today, do you shoot in black and white or color?
Well, the question is, do you shoot in black and white or color? My question, and it's a rhetorical question, is why would I want to shoot in black and white?
I don't know.
I don't want to shoot in black and white. I want to shoot in color, and then when I look at it, I'll convert it to black and white. And 95% of what I convert goes to black and white. But every once in a while you go, oh my God, that is so beautiful. I'm not touching it. I'm going to leave it in color.
You preview in black and white?
No.
You look at the preview in black and white?
No, but my mind switches it off, Ed.
Yeah, me too.
You know that. Any of us that have been doing it that long, we just automatically see it in tones. But you gotta leave yourself the margin of error there, if you will, and it's not really an error, it's just what it is.
And what size lens did you use for that?
That's a 24. Yeah, I'm really basically a one-lens photographer. Robert Capa. So are you writing this down? I haven't seen you write anything down. You're going to have to hand in that prayer shawl of yours. What a disgrace you are. Anyway, what happens? What was your question?
What size lens? What size lens?
What size lens? 24.
It's a fixed lens?
Oh yeah. Oh, I'd much rather. I have a 16 to 35. It's a nice lens and it's comfortable because you can switch back and forth. And the quality is as good. Some people say, well, zooms aren't as good quality-wise. I'm not that fussy. Maybe they're right about that, and I'm not going to argue it. But I just like fixed lenses. And Robert Capa said once, if your pictures aren't good enough, you're probably not close enough. So my attitude is, once you feel you're close enough, move in a step. Just keep going, and if I'm going to photograph, I'm going to keep going. Until he yells at me and says, hey, come on, get out of my face, So you push it. Here's where you have an advantage, you two, and you. You're ladies. Most people aren't going to yell at you. They're going to yell at me. Who the hell are you? Get out of here. And I think Dorothea Lange had that that same advantage. She was a woman.
I've gotten yelled at. It's
Oh,
very,
yeah. Well-
very intimidating.
Well, you hire Mike, who's 6'4", and he's Italian, you know, so just hire him to stand behind you and say, "What'd you say to her?" So you take your chances. That happens. But, you know, you're going to get better stuff that way. You get one out of every 300 shots somebody's going to yell at you. I'll take it. Who is that? Ed, be quiet. Michael, be quiet. Ed, be quiet.
Cortez.
Who is it?
Cortez.
Very good. Very good. Who knows who Cortez is? Let me see the hands. You should be ashamed of yourselves, all of you. This is the father of photography, as far as I'm concerned. This is the guy, everybody after him stood on his shoulders. He was 92 when I took this picture down in Greenwich Village, in his apartment, and he couldn't have been sweeter. He was originally Hungarian, went to Paris, lived in Paris, hung out with the artists in Paris for 30 years, then came to the United States and worked for Life magazine, wasn't happy there, and lived down in the village. But a giant, if you look at his pictures, you know, we should all be that good. He's unbelievable. Cartier-Bresson learned from him, Brassai, you know, all the great photographers that were Willy Rons that were living in Paris. You know, he really set the standard. He has a picture of a blind man and a little child leading the blind man that he took in like 1916. Now, you got to remember, 1916, what kind of camera were you using? A Leica? No, Leicas weren't around then. It's on a tripod, and it's a glass plate negative, you know, and he's got it like this, and he's taking a picture of this man. Great photograph. But go to Barnes & Noble, or go to Amazon, and buy one of Cortez's books. And this is important to me. My son went to the Tisch School at NYU for 4 years, right? He studied film, graduated with the highest honors, you know, the kid playing tennis. He's formed his own production company. He's 24. He's going out to LA with these 3 or 4 other guys, and they're making movies. And Quentin Tarantino is one of his heroes, and mine. I love Quentin Tarantino. And a reporter asked Tarantino, "What film school did you go to?" He said, "I didn't go to film school. I went to films." And that's what I'm saying to you guys. You don't have, if I'm teaching at NYU or at ICP or something, you don't have to take my course. Take your own course. Pick up books. Go to Barnes & Nobles and look at all the photography books in there and just buy them and bring them home and look at them and look at them and look at them and learn from them and study them. And you'll be surprised. We don't understand the subconscious, but I'm convinced that practically everything I've already taken has been somewhere pulled from my subconscious in some sort of way. So I've got stacks of books that I still look at. I look at Cortez all the time. Not that I don't know every shot. You can't show me a photograph that Cortez took and I say, "I know who took that. Cortez took it." So go buy books. Buy photography books, study photography books, you know, magazines. My favorite magazine is not a photo magazine. I don't mean to put the photo magazines down. It's W. And you've seen that? Cliff's seen it. It's a woman's magazine, you know, for clothing. You know, and the first section of the book is all about the tchotchkes, you know, they're selling and all the people at fancy balls and stuff like that. But the last quarter of the magazine is fashion photography that nobody else has done. It's brand new stuff. It's not Irving Penn, it's not Abaddon. This stuff is so new, so adventurous, so challenging. The color is magnificent, and I'm not a color photographer outside of J. Maisel. You know, I love this stuff. And the last issue was all black and white. So get a subscription to W, and I'm not promoting them over any other magazine. A friend of mine's the photo editor at Glamour, and that's an excellent magazine for photography. And even though you're not shooting fashion, it doesn't matter. What you're looking at is positioning, balance, composition, tone, texture, and all of these things. That's what you're studying. So I'm glad you got Cortez. See, you get a T-shirt on the way out. That's right. Yeah, this is impossible. This is an impossible photograph. I'm inside this poor woman's shack, if you will, for want of a better term. I've got a black woman that's being backlit, lights coming at me. So, you know, and I'm using a Leica, and I'm saying, what the hell? What do I expose for here? You know, and after a while, you know, after shooting down there for 30 years, I learned what to do. But she's got a white shirt on, black skin, and light coming in behind her. And I really want this photograph. So I did and worked on it in the dark room. Now these kind of things I like. This is a common, ordinary scene you'll see practically any day. This is a CBS building. But I love the fact that this guy is surrounded by these giant, these monoliths about to close in on him and squeeze him into the corporate, you know, the corporate world. He's got his head down. He's not looking forward to it, you know. And these are the kind of things I read into a photograph. You may not read into it. You know, you may just see some old guy walking into a building with big stones. One of the first pictures I ever took was down in the village. I was down visiting Jay Maisel, who lives in the Bowery, and there was this poor character. Again in Antigua, light coming in from behind her, so you're exposing the foreground. And I was lucky in a sense, because the guy I learned to print in the darkroom was a guy named Myron Schifrin, who was Irving Penn's darkroom man for years. And he was a magician in the darkroom. And I learned that all my prints should look like Mike's. Now I want you to notice this house that he's going to. It's up on, see the rocks that it's standing on? That's to, you know, to keep the air flowing from underneath so it doesn't rot. But it's all boarded up. I remember when Francis opened the door, it was like walking into a sauna. For the Antiguans, that's no problem. For, you know, us honkies, that's another problem altogether. It was hot in there. And the reason he has those shutters closed, I said, Francis, why don't you keep the shutters open when you go to work on your ground? He said, no, it's going to be, if it rains, then everything gets wet. And I said, okay, that's the point. So the shutters are closed, and it is hot. I used to beg Gracie to let me take her picture, because I loved her face. I think she was a very handsome woman. And she fought me all the time. And I fought back until I got this one photograph. And this is that man I was just talking about. We followed him into his house, and he's opened the shutters. This is my portrait of, these are old people. And this is Jay Maisel. And he's not hearing this, is he? No, okay, good. He may be chronologically old, but he's one of the youngest people I know. He's a big kid. He's delightful and funny, intelligent, enormously talented, and for some reason he allows me to shoot him from a low angle. Now I love this photograph. Look at his hands. This is a guy who's labored all his life in the fields, you know, and he's got arthritic hands, you know, with those big knuckles and everything. But this is a project. And this is one of the things I suggest to all of you, is find a project. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it is. I don't know where you live. But find something that when you get up in the morning, that's what you want to do. You know, some of you may work 5 days a week on weekends, but devote your time to that, you know, and it'll grow. I promise you it'll grow. And I remember one class, one young guy asked me, how do I know I want to be a photographer? I said, well, that's easy. I said, when you get up in the morning and you walk to the window and you're looking out and somebody comes in the room and says, what's it like outside? You got one answer and only one answer. It's F8 at 250. Then you know you want to be a photographer. Because right away, this is your life. And you're ready. You get that camera. When we got out of the parking lot, the first thing I did was I set my camera. I don't know what I'm going to see. Maybe I won't see anything, but I may see something that I have to act very quickly. So I want to set properly. Again, portraits. You know, dignified portraits. You know, poor people, but with a great deal of dignity and pride. You know, the poverty doesn't show in those glorious faces. They don't make them like this anymore, so don't bother looking. This is Mr. Anthony, and I love him. I love his high cheekbones, his narrow eyes, that tie, the clip-on tie. I wanted to buy it from him, but he wouldn't sell it. Again, this I know this is not my photo. This belongs to Roy Decarava. He took a picture of a man walking down the street in a coat, and he's got behind him, his hands are like this, he's carrying a briefcase. That's basically, you know, it's almost the same thing. You know, I'm shooting behind him. You know, there's no way to identify who this is or where it is, but yet there's a certain sense of quiet and mystery in here. Is that my phone? It's not. Again, looking into the picture, there's a cat underneath the... Who said, oh yeah? That's what I mean by looking into a photograph. Don't just look at it. You know, and look at the sticks, those socks that she has there. You know, the stuff on the side of the door. She's got a whole bunch of, you know, interesting cards. This is great. You wonder why people in these situations have such wonderful posture. It's because they're always carrying things on their heads. You know, you can't walk like this with something on your head. You got to be up like that, and you got to be able to balance as you're walking. And she's got sugar cane in one hand. She's got a bunch of vegetables and a cloth in the other, and she's carrying something in the other hand, and she's barefooted, you know, and she's probably just gotten off the donkey that's in the background there. Did you see the donkey? Oh, okay, good. Make sure. This picture, this is a very difficult picture for me because it's a friend of mine's grandfather. I've known him for years. And I love this picture in this sense that here's this old man who knows where the end of the road is. I don't know, you don't know. You know, we're all young, but he knows, and I can see in those pleading eyes, you know, in a sense he's pleading for life, you know, or the fact that I'm young and I'm going to still go on, but he doesn't have much time left. And he's a very sweet old man. And that's his wife next to him, and she's in better health, unfortunately, for him. Same thing here, you know, these old guys, there's a lot of wisdom there that they can impart. Because they've done so much and they've seen so much. This is in the supermarket. This is where you can really get yelled at. But, you know, I just love following these old guys walking around there. This was in Venice. Now, I'm going to tell you what I see. You're going to look at it and you're going to see what you want to see, and that's what I want. I want you to have your own interpretation. But here it is. Here he is, this old man. He's walking toward the light. This is the end of his road. And here's this angel, this little dog represents an angel who's come for him. And he's opened his coat on that side for the dog to come in. You know, and he's got 3 legs. He's got 2 legs and a cane. And the white hair, and it all suggests that. Now, if you see something else, that's fine. You know, but I don't want to hear it. Westwood, New Jersey. You don't have to go far. Marcel Proust, the great writer, said, "You don't need new venues. You need new eyes." So it doesn't matter where you are. You just have to look differently, find different things, and challenge yourself. Because let's face it, today, guys like me and Mike and Ed, freelancers, Ed back there, same thing. Jay, we're getting killed from these kids. These kids are coming out of college, you know. Was that me? Okay, thanks. These kids are coming out of college. 20 years ago, there was no major in photography. There was major in fine art, but not photography. Now they're majoring in photography. So these kids come out, and they're all technical geniuses. You know, they can work the computers, they can work the cameras, you know. And I had a kid come in and show me his portfolio, and I said, "That's nice." He says, "Beautiful stuff. But," and it was a big but, I said, "You haven't said anything. You know, if we're going to assume that Confucius was right, that a picture's worth 1,000 words, you're babbling. You know, prints are excellent, because I know you guys know how to print. And you got Epson or Canon printers and Animule paper, and you're making all these beautiful items." And I said to him, I said, I don't care. He was talking about his depth of field in one photograph. I said, "I don't care what your depth of field was. I want to know what your depth of feeling was. You know, I haven't felt you. I want to see what your heart is like. I don't want to see what's inside your head, because that's a bunch of gibberish. I want to know what's in here. And you got to put it on that piece of paper." And here's another thing. I get close to kids, and kids are great. They usually ignore me, you know. So it's just like my wife. You know. I'll take my wife, please. I'm sorry. I can always go back into Henny Youngman without a beat. Okay? You want to know how it looks in color? 10,000 ASA. 10,000 ASA, and that'll go 30 by 40 without a blink. Easily. And this was at a concert last week at Ramapo College. You know, again, you know, we have the advantage of Photoshop. You want to make it darker, make it darker. You want to make it lighter, make it lighter. You want to crop it, you can still crop it at 10,000 ASA, and it still holds up. 25,000, like I said. These are the portraits I'm doing in my gallery. I got these kids come in, and, you know, we did some serious stuff as much as, I said, "Come on, all right, have some fun, clown around," you know, and no flash. There's no flash in this. And it's just the light coming in, and I go in Photoshop and I open the one kid up, and the other kid might have a shadow across it. I open that up a little bit, you know, and I print the way Mike Schifrin would have printed it. This was that same section. Here's the frame, right? It's this big. It's that much of the frame. It's like 1/4 of the frame. I just blew the hell out of it. And I love the softness of it. And if I toned it a little bit, a little sepia tone, you would have said that you took that back in the 40s somewhere, because it has that quality about it. That's what happens when the one going down stops, you know, and her brother comes behind and boom, look out. I love this interaction between the two of them. It's so quiet. That's perfect. The son is just about to teach the father how to use the cell phone. Again, New York City. I'm in my car. I'm stopped in traffic. I look to my left. There's this poor woman, you know. See, this is where you can get yelled at. Fortunately, I was using Leicas in those days, and it was real quick. I just took it like that, and I moved on. But with these things, you want to see it to make sure you got it right, so you're going to stick around. Somebody can say, "You just take my picture." This is a picture I took in a window, and I didn't like it. And I do this every time. I go, God, if that's a piece of garbage, let me see what will happen when I solarize it. So I solarized it. It gave it some heft. I don't know if it's an immaculate work of art. Same thing here. You know. Again, it's just a simple. I shot a guy yesterday for an agency in New York. The guy came out by a car, and I shot him there, and he said, "This is the first time I've ever had a portrait taken with a wide-angle lens." I took this with a 24-millimeter lens, but I'm real close to him, and you can see the depth in the picture. One more time. I'm at my cousin's wedding. I'm using 20D with a pop flash. I'm shooting like crazy. All of a sudden, the battery goes, right? And I don't want to walk back to my table and get another battery because the kids are having a great time. I don't want to miss it. So I've got the Canon with the 16 to 35 zoom on it. It's a 2.8, unfortunately. This is a 1.4, which I could have gotten away with. But this is a 2.8. I'm going, oh, God, there's no light. It's just red gels, red and blue gels. So I took one shot, too dark, at 10,000. Another shot, 12,000. Too dark. 25,000. And I got one picture. All the others were soft because it was hard focusing, auto-focusing in that light. But I got that one. You know, it had some help in Photoshop, but it's amazing that I can, you know, go into a dark area. You know, you can go into a closet and photograph moths with that camera. Now, I did not take this picture. My son took this picture when he was 16. He was going in the city. I said, take the camera, and he's griping about it and doesn't want to do it because he's a filmmaker. So I said, take it and have some fun. So he did, and he came up with that. This he took in Paris. With a camera we were throwing away. It was a junky little point and shoot. You know, he took this in Paris. I almost went crazy when I saw this. I said, he's shooting against the light, and yet this is what he comes up with, this dramatic picture. This is a picture he took of his mother. You know, he wasn't satisfied with just taking a picture of his mother on a bench. He was being a little more creative, looking for something. You know, and I got to give him credit. So remember the name, Anthony DiGiacomo, and read credits in the movies because you'll see it. Go over to somebody's house, there's a barbecue or something like that, and just shoot. This city is great for reflections. I took this in California, but New York City is, especially on Fifth Avenue. Just look at all the reflections. You know, don't just look at the mannequins. Look at the reflections in relationship to the mannequins. All the buildings that are being reflected in the same image. Jersey City. This is my daughter. I had to give her some time, you know, because I got so many pictures of Anthony. My daughter down in Antigua when she was a kid. And we'll come, you know, in somebody's backyard, somebody's rodeo party. A friend of mine, a filmmaker in Vermont, John O'Brien, commented on this photograph And the one line he used with the hand reaching out with the whipped cream on, says, "The grasping claw of more." What a wonderful line. Is he leaving already? You came late and now you're leaving.
You're going to be waiting for me.
All right. Give him his T-shirt and let him out. Who shot the Easter parade here in the city? Oh, one? That's it? You should be ashamed of yourself. You want a photo op? Go to the Easter parade. There are more narcissists running around there. And all you're doing is going click, click. Oh, over here, click, click. Stand over here, go like this. They'll do anything you want. You'll be surprised the power you have. As long as you have that camera in your hand, they will do anything for you. Did you raise your hand or are you just scratching your yarmulke? Okay, I got it, okay. Look at the anticipation. You know, you can take a picture like that of kids anticipating something, but if you don't see what they're anticipating, the photograph's not enough. You're going over the George Washington Bridge like I do all the time, and one day the sky is just perfect. And you take the picture even though the cops are looking at you through their cameras, everything. And that's medicinal marijuana, by the way. These kids do not grow this up in the hills. There's your birthday cake. And you get close. Oh, sorry. This is what I mean by the reflections in the window. It's some wonderful picture. I mean, if you do a picture of a portrait of New York City, this will do. Well, you know, this was taken with the pop flash, but now I wouldn't use that camera anymore. I'd use this, you know, so I can be less intrusive. This is, you know, there's a lot going on in there. And again, you're making order out of chaos. Same thing here, order out of chaos. And I love stuff that interrupts the frame. You know, I hear somebody say, "Oh, excuse me, I said, no, man, I want that." So, you know, I know he's about to throw it, so I'm ready to catch that action. And just, I love the woman behind, you know, with her eyes. Same thing here. You know, these irrational compositions work for me. Right after this, he was abducted by a spaceship. And look at the scale of this, the way it goes from, you know, oversized all the way down, you know, to the child in the background. Oh my gosh. That other kid that was taking the pictures before, I gave one of my cameras and he took that. I love it. A friend of ours plays the pipes. You know, and it's one thing to stand in front of him and take a couple of pictures of a piper, but I wanted to make it a little more interesting, so I went behind it, you know, and got the guy that was holding the music. Her name is Claire.
Is that the guy that was abducted by aliens?
That's his cousin. No. I love this. The mother and son at a wedding, and I just love the way, this is my cousin Giselle. Where is he? Andrew? Still, you recognize those two people? Well, I just love the way Giselle's looking at her son. It's so adoringly. I'm shooting the Indy 500 for ABC, right? I'm out there for 3 weeks shooting these cars, these mindless cars going around and around, and they bore the hell out of me, and I hated shooting it. The most exciting thing is walking back to your car, because that's where all the drunks were, you know? And that's where the photographs were. That, and there's a place called the Snake Pit, where the dregs of humanity hang out, including me, you know, and just getting great pictures of all this decadence. Everybody's fair game. As long as you have your camera and you're over somebody's house, until they throw you out for being obnoxious. Now, this picture, it says, "Through my eyes," and it's a picture of a kid's face. This is a kid who came into my gallery. She was 14 years old and painfully shy. And she loved photography, but she was using a cell phone, but not these new ones. This cell phone is like 7 or 8 years ago, and it just had one little round thing, and she was taking these unbelievable photographs. And it just emphasized, she took that picture of herself with this cell phone and made a book out of it. And it just lends credence to the argument that cameras, you know, cameras don't take pictures. You take pictures. 10,000 ASA. You know, I couldn't have done this with my Leica, because I would have been down to maybe 1/8 of a second, you know, and hoping the kid doesn't move, and hopefully I'm steady enough, you know, shooting wide open. You know, and if I hear anything about all those poor kids that live in, you know, in the poor neighborhoods, I grew up like that. I loved, you know, finding junky old things to climb on. You know, they weren't fancy like today. Now you got to put down a carpet, you know, so the kid doesn't hurt themselves. Look at this. You fall here, you were in trouble. You know? So it made you a little tougher, too. Same thing here. You know, you run. If you run and you fall and trip here, you're going to be bleeding from your elbow, your ankles, your knees. You know, these guys were very friendly to me. And I would get in real close as they're singing, you know, until somebody says, "Get the hell out of here," and nobody ever did. I remember I used to see pictures in the Daily News, and your father was one of them, and Danny Farrell was another one. You know, you can hear the editor saying, "Come on, it's 95 degrees, go up to Harlem, Spanish Harlem, get those cute little kids running around in the fire hydrants." Okay, fine. And the photographers would all have a long lens on, and they'd stand on the sidewalk photographing the kids, and they'd go back and they'd bring their film in, and they'd sit down, have coffee, and the lab would process the film and go, "Okay, we got a shot," put it on the back of the thing, you know, cute little black kids playing in the water, wherever. I said, "No, that's not where the photographs are. The photographs are in the water." So I got a housing for my Leica, and I went in the water, and it comes up with this. Same thing here. You know, any of us have kids, and we have a toy like this, and the wheel breaks. First thing the kid's going, "Come on, we got to go to Kmart and get a new bicycle." Not these kids. They didn't have any money. They were all Puerto Rican kids living in a ghetto in Jersey City, and look at the wheels broken. And they're still having a good time. I love the fact that I caught the kid with both feet off the ground, too. That helps, because it lends a little power. And bathing suits, who needs a bathing suit? It's where you're under. You know, that's a Puerto Rican version of an Italian Speedo. Look at these kids. How many times have you seen girls do that? Oh, boys too. And I love all the paraphernalia all around. This is something, if Cartier-Bresson were alive today, I know he'd take this. Because this is so much, of his influence on me, of photographing stuff like that. That marriage lasted about a half an hour. No, I'm only kidding. They're still together. And she still hates him. No. Only kidding, Joe. I have no idea what John is doing, but I couldn't resist the photograph. It just gets more and more surreal, You got these legs and hands and the strange hand overwards and a kid with his eyes shut. You want to do a portrait of people? Let them be themselves. That is so much, for me, so much more valuable than sitting them down against the backdrop and lighting it, and putting a fill card in there and doing all this technical stuff to make them look good. And you say, okay, smile. Here, I didn't say smile. This is it. They're just responding to life. And that to me is a portrait. Now, my cousin took this, Louise DiGiacomo. And it's a picture, just a portrait of a man's face. But you can see her hand and the camera in the shadow. And I told her, I said, if I ever show that, I'm taking credit for it. Actually, it's Louise, and it's a great photo, Louise. Now, I didn't take this either because I'm allergic to cats. But Martina Navratilova took this. And I helped her buy her camera. She was going to Africa. And I brought her to Bergen County Camera, and she bought a whole bunch of equipment. And the thing that amazes me is how intelligent she is, because you don't just pick up a camera and go to Africa and take pictures. You really have to know some things about it. And boy, she was a quick study. The wedding, the guy giving a speech. This is what happens when you use a Holga and you don't tape it up the way they say you should tape it up. You get these wonderful light leaks in there. And that's what happened there. I remember I got a call from Newsweek. They said, there's a baseball strike. We want you to shoot it. And I said, yeah? He said, what's a baseball strike look like? I said, what the hell am I going to do? He said, no, you always solve problems for us, so, all right. So I get my car, I go up to Yankee Stadium, and there's nothing there. And there's no pickets, no baseball is unfair to players, nothing. So I saw these kids, luckily, that were playing stickball in a big fenced-off area. It's just like when I grew up, playing in the schoolyards. So I went in, I told them I was taking some pictures, and I said, yeah, okay. I took one with the Holga, and it really, what professional photographer in his right mind would use a plastic camera for a Newsweek assignment, right? So, I took some with my Leica, but I took some with the Holga. And the one with the Holga ran. And over in see the little holes right above the groom? Well, these little holes were on the other side of this picture, and you could see 888 in it. And that was the number on the back of the film, on the 120 film. And it bled through. And Jimmy Colton, who was the picture editor at the time, said, this doesn't belong in Newsweek. It belongs in the Museum of Modern Art. And that's, so take your picture with whatever the hell you have. This is the Chamber of Commerce in New York City welcoming some poor guy from Detroit. Welcome to New York. If you're afraid of photographing people, then find something else, like an abstract like this. You know, find different things. You know, not everybody's going to be like me, and I don't expect you to. I expect you to be yourself and find your own vision. You can look at mine and say, okay, yeah, I'm going to try that, I'm going to try this. Because I did that looking at Cortez and Bresci and all my antecedents. But eventually you get off their shoulders and you develop your own style. So what I'm saying is that going up to people and putting a camera in their face is not your idea of a good time. Look for other things like this. I love the structure of this damn thing. And, you know, same thing here. You know, it's easy to photograph bums sleeping on a street. But if you want to make it a little more interesting, you got to get down on your stomach. And that's, in those days, I could bend that far. Again, you know, you don't want to photograph people, then photograph windows and make them interesting. Simple reflection in the window. They're not hard to find. They're all over the place, you know. But later on, you have to go in Photoshop and play with it to lighten or darken certain areas, you know, to make it effective. Now, before you saw my daughter with another black fella, this is her 30 years later. So I just wanted to show this. That she was adorable then, and she's even more adorable now. And Patrick, when you see this on the internet, you owe me. Again, 10,000 ASA, just regular tungsten light in a house. You know, this is before Leicas, before the old Nikons, before the old Canons. You know, now with the digital age, I'm not saying that I've given up on film photography. I love film. You know, and if I could find a Leica, you know, that wasn't $9,000 for the body, you know, that I could use, I'd use it. I like the Leica a lot. You know, this thing's a bit heavy and cumbersome, but the Leica was wonderful. And you could steal photographs with the Leica because they were quiet. Look how physical that damn photograph is. You know, just a half a step and you're actually kissing the kid's cheek. And they're sharp as a tack, the digital. See, again, it's just a matter of, you got chaos, you want to make some order out of it. Again, if you want to get pictures of kids and they're playing, you got to go in the game. And you may even get wet, but you've got to go in the game. And you got to go in there with a wide angle lens and chase them down. For me, this whole picture lies in that eye over here in the corner. Did you see that? Okay, I just make sure you've been paying attention. You know. This was at a Christmas celebration. You know, and a lot of people are around, but the thing that really attracted me was, Karen, you're going to love this word, the Madonna in the background with the child. A wedding. Didn't last long, unfortunately. Again, look how clean that digital is. If that were film, you know, you'd have a texture to it. You know, it depends. You might like the texture. I did. I always liked the texture. Here's the situation. This is a very interesting wall. I'm looking at that and I go, well, cripes, anybody can take that picture of a wall. So I had to wait until somebody came by, and a whole bunch of people came by. I wanted to get the right attitude, and you know, this guy gave me a little bit anyway. Whoop, you've seen that again. I don't know why I did this, but I solarized it because I knew that the kid would stay sharp and the woman would solarize like that. And, you know, it's in memory of her son. And in a sense, for me, again, you may not agree, is that the woman is almost skeletal. In other words, her son is dead and so is she. You know, this was her life. Oh, sorry. You got something here that's almost foreboding in the sense that there's so much tension in this guy's hands and his back and his muscles, and he's foretelling what may happen, you know, in front of him. I didn't take this. A friend of mine did, and I liked it, and I said, I'm going to put it in the show. You know, he's not a photographer. He has a, quote, real job, but he loves photography. And this is one of his projects when he travels. I always find the Met a very interesting place to shoot because the light in the Met is wonderful. So, again, if you don't want to photograph people, go to the Met. None of these guys complained, matter of fact. Aristotle on the left gave me a little whatever. And this is one of my penchants. I love doing this. I love pushing something way off into the corner, you know, and then something else to balance it off. But I mean, that's breaking all rules. And you know the rules in photography. The first rule, what's the first rule?
No rules.
There are no rules, right. You know what the second rule is?
No rules.
If you happen to find one, break it. I was yelling at myself one day. I'm sitting at home, it's 95 degrees, and I'm going, what the hell are you doing sitting in here? You know, in a nice air-conditioned gallery. I said, get into the city and find something. There's got to be something going on in the city. So I went down to NYU where my son went, and I'm walking around Washington Square, and these guys just, you know, hit it right on the nose. And I love pictures of pictures, especially of New York. This was the Yankee Stadium shot that I was telling you about. This one I took with my Leica. You know, I just had the kid lie there and say, you know, here's the baseball stripe, and this poor kid can't get into Yankee Stadium. Greatest square in New York City, I don't care what anybody says, bar none, is Union Square. Because there are more cuckoos down there, you know. And that's what your job is. You're a cuckoo hunter. You are there to collect cuckoos for the anthropologists in the future. You want to see what New York was back in the 2000s? It's not the girl in the foreground that interests me so much. It's the kid that's looking up. And, you know, what is he looking at? You know, and the minute you get that, the minute you get those questions, you've succeeded. All right, any other questions before that woman leaves? Yes, sir. Ma'am. Sorry.
Had a lot of fun. Thanks so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Thank you all. And don't forget to see Debbie for the free T-shirts.
Whether you're a hobbyist or a professional, B&H has the answers to your questions. Experience a world of technology at our New York City Superstore. Connect with us online or give us a call. Our staff of experts is happy to help.